Kevin Miller in the morning, joining us now from Washington, D.C., Maria Espinoza from the Remembrance Project. Maria, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Well, a lot of folks may not know just how significant the Remembrance Project is, and just even the name Remembrance. Can you let folks know about your project and how significant it is and how underreported what y'all do is with the mainstream media?
I would love to. Thanks so much. The Remembrance Project was started in 2009 by my husband, Tim Ling, and I. And, Kevin, we are just kind of normal people, and so we saw something wrong. We wanted to write that. So with all your listeners, they certainly can have an impact in what happens in our country. But in Houston, Texas, which is where we are from, we heard a news report about Officer Henry Canales, who was murdered by an illegal alien. And within that report, they mentioned there was a previous Houston police officer by the name of Rodney Johnson, who was also murdered. He was shot 4 or 5 times in the back of the head. And his wife, a police officer, filed a lawsuit over the murder of her husband by an illegal alien, and it had to do with the sanctuary city policies in Houston. And my father came from Mexico, came here the right way, and I was just very surprised and alarmed that illegal aliens basically had sanctuary in Houston. And more after we conducted research, not only did we find that there were so many more killings of Americans, murders by people who shouldn't be here in the first place in Texas, but all around the United States. And we found that it was an epidemic of killings by illegal aliens. And, we obviously knew that we weren't the first ones to discover this. So we assumed that the media, which we assumed correctly, was hiding all this information, the fake news. Now we know it certainly exists. So we created the Stolen Lives quilt banners. And that's what people saw during the campaign. On the banners and the memorial shirts, the angel moms and dads and families wore on stage during the campaign with Donald Trump.
Maria, a lot of folks in Idaho, because we have migrant workers and such, they don't have the same view as destination states, sanctuary states. Before I moved here almost 9 years ago, I worked in North Carolina and Tennessee and Alabama, and we covered those stories about people. A lot of folks, we talk about compassion, and yet the press does not have compassion for families who have lost loved ones due to the illegals being here, sometimes deported multiple times, sometimes violent criminals that have no business being free, and they're let loose repeatedly, and some horrific crimes that don't get reported. Your thoughts on the hypocrisy of the press?
Yes, there is a huge hypocrisy and double standard, Kevin, and it has to do with political correctness, number one, and the Democrat Party, which I'm a former Democrat, so I understand what they do, but also the fact that they push a narrative, and that party is no longer what it used to be, and they've become very, very left, but they have a certain narrative that they stick with, that they political correctness, they pull the race card, and they hide behind what works for them in the past are the children. They use them, as I say, just shielding their far left agendas and ignoring American and what's going on here. You're absolutely right. It's here. What we're going through right now in this country is the separation of families of the illegal aliens who came here. Now, remember, they have an avenue to come in through the ports of entry and not have to go through the prosecution, because they're entering illegally. We have laws, and they choose to ignore them. But the left does not look at that. They look at it only as separating their families, only, 1, 2, 3 days. But the separation of American families, they completely ignore. In fact, we saw several years back that the media would not even report whether or not a killer murderer was illegally in the country or not. So we saw that their names weren't even mentioned, and the fact that they were illegally in the country was hidden. And last year, my husband and I met with Attorney General Jeff Sessions in trying to obtain statistics on how many Americans have been killed, because we don't have that information. The media hides it, the government hides it, and Attorney General Sessions said that it is impossible to obtain because the municipalities will not cooperate with the federal government. And as you see, and all your listeners now, the left agenda, sanctuary city mayors and police chiefs, and even federal judges are exposed now. So this is what's going on, everything against the American taxpayer, our country's borders are being erased, our Constitution shredded right before our eyes.
Maria Espinoza joining us from the Remembrance Project. Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. I don't know, Maria, if you can give us more stories, because, again, folks in these parts, we don't have those stories. And it's frustrating when you look at destination places like North Carolina where the illegals know they can go get a driver's license. Heck, at one time, Bank of America, they were giving mortgages to the illegals. In Tennessee, where you have grandmothers viciously, I can't even describe what happened to these grandmothers because these criminals were allowed to come into this country. Let's talk a little bit about the serious threat of MS-13.
Well, absolutely. You know, through our work, Kevin, we've realized what now that we knew and uncovered what now the country is barely learning, and that is that machete, number one, is the favorite weapon of this MS-13 gang members. And you know, you would think that these problems were only in the border states, you know, Texas, Arizona, California, New Mexico, but it's not. It is widespread, and that's what shocked us in our own research. We didn't have the federal government assisting us in obtaining some of this research. We also found that there is a high, this is really sad, a high percentage of the illegal alien population has committed rape and child molestation, and they get away with this. And this is not even what we touch on. We solely concentrate on the killings of Americans because that is the most egregious. But again, the child molestation and rape that occurs that is caused by the illegal alien demographic is huge. And that is everlasting and stays with a child or a young lady all her life. But you mentioned, you know, North Carolina. We found that North Carolina had a high population of illegal aliens, and they congregate. And there is like a pipeline of individuals who work in this life of crime, and they know where to go. They know where to get all the fraudulent papers, and many Americans don't even know that their identity has been stolen until they go to a bank and maybe get a loan or something. But we do have a family that's in North Carolina, and her brother was killed in a car crash. She survived, and her brother was an entrepreneur. He employed several people, had a small construction company, and he was already feeling, you know, the competition of trying to stay in business because illegal aliens were being hired, or they would create a company through the IRS ITIN numbers, which are the individual tax identification numbers that the IRS obviously does not look to see whether or not an individual is legally in the country. So how can American corporations compete with the illegal alien workforce? You know, they have 10 people in one apartment, and
right.
You know, so you can't compete with that. But there's so many things that we're involved with, even with the bail bondsmen, and making sure that these bail bondsmen do not give bail bonds to bail out an illegal alien, knowing that they're going to flee. So we're trying to hold their feet to the fire, and that's working in North Carolina. But this is just one instance that is taking place all over the United States. Texas alone, Kevin, we had in the past 10 years over 640,000 crimes. 640,000 crimes against Texans. And 1,200 of those crimes were homicides. And that's only about 30 or 35% of the criminals get caught. So extrapolate that, how many killings that would be probably 3,600 at least additional killings, and the culprit got away. But this isn't just Texas. This is everywhere. Oregon has a problem. A young lady, Danny Countryman, was raped and killed. 2 illegal aliens attacked her and put their foot on her throat, and that's how they killed little Danny. And she was there just to attend her sister's graduation from Oregon State.
That was Oregon. In Oregon State, Corvallis. Wow. Yes,
that was Oregon, Idaho. In fact, a lot of people don't know. I gave a presentation a few years ago there in Idaho, and, Idaho is on the FBI crime report for drugs. There's a lot of meth and drug trafficking. Your state is red, which is a high alert for drugs. And this is little Idaho. I was born in Texas, but raised in Northwest, also in Washington State. Washington State is the same way. So all that crime and illegal alien, crime is going right up that California and into Oregon and Washington. But the very liberal mindset makes it ripe for people who want to take advantage of America and our laws. And look, if we can't even enforce existing laws, we've got a huge problem here, Kevin.
Well, Maria, that's what I don't understand. And, thank you for mentioning what's going on here. Having worked and folks know in North Carolina, it amazed me that there's a couple of big universities there. North Carolina State University, they were redoing the stadium, and the INS, the Immigration Natural Services, showed up once, and I'm not kidding, 3/4 of the workforce, it was documented, ran into the woods. And It's not that we need immigration reform. As you said, we need to enforce the laws on the books that we have. And I don't understand the psychology, the sociology of the press of the United States that will give all this attention to what's going on with the criminals coming in with their families and being compassionate, and yet not cover news of Americans being victimized by folks that don't belong here.
Right. Doesn't fit their agenda. And we're not only battling the far left or Democrat Party and the fake news and the deep state, Kevin, we are also battling other countries like Mexico and Honduras. In fact, the caravan of migrants a month and a half ago that was made its way up to the southern border of the United States, a Honduran official was walking with that caravan and interviewed, and he said that he was directed by his government to partake in that caravan. And we've known this because we've looked and we understand what's going on, and we can see things that I guess the average person doesn't know because of our work. But Mexico deliberately pushes out their citizens. I was doing some research several years back, and you really have to do a lot of digging and following article for article and then attaching that to some legislation. But about two-thirds of the illegal aliens from Mexico that were in the United States came from about 6 or 7 states in Mexico that told me, obviously, that they were being pushed out. But remember, in the 90s, there was that little, like a comic book, a publishing that the Mexican government put out to its citizens, telling them how to come to the U.S. border, what to do, what to wear, take your, clothing and all, what to do when you get there, and what to say. And that's still being done. Unfortunately, our legislators on both sides of the aisle have sold us out. And, they accept that one side does want that voter block, and they know that when these illegal aliens come up here, if they vote illegally, of course, they will vote Democrat. And also the Republicans, they're taking that open border lobbyist blood money to fill their reelection campaign coffers, while our children, Kevin, are filling America's coffins.
You're right, Maria. If people want more information about the Remembrance Project, to get more information, what can they do?
They can go to our website, theremembranceproject.org, theremembranceproject.org. And, I volunteer my time. We're certainly not financially independent, but we feel so strongly about what's going on and trying to right a right and save American lives and shine a light on how backwards we are and how close we are to losing our country. So any donation would be greatly appreciated, Kevin. But I want to thank you first for being a voice out there. I can imagine it's very difficult, but you're doing right, and we need more people like yourself, Kevin. So thank you so much for being a voice.
Well, thank you, Marie. They're trying to eliminate all of us.
They are.
Yeah.
And they are. Absolutely. But we're going to keep fighting. They
Right
underestimate the scrappy American.
We'd love to have you back, Marie. You take care.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you. What a nice young lady. Coming up next, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Your thoughts on the president saying the families can stay. Do you agree with this policy, or should he have stood tough and said, no, 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 no coming to America, and if you do, you're going to be separated from your kids? And unfortunately, I believe that this is just going to exacerbate the problem. You're going to have more people coming because they believe that we are weak. Some would say we're compassionate. What about you? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Do appreciate Maria Espinoza for joining us. Now it's up to you, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Earlier we were talking about a decision in Canada. Oh, Canada. Yeah, I'll never be a singer. Oh, Canada.
Has now passed Bill C-45, which will legalize and strictly regulate access to cannabis. We will soon have a new system in place, one that keeps cannabis out of the hands of our kids and keeps profits away from organized crime.
Sure.
Today, I'm also pleased to announce that the new recreational cannabis regime will officially come into force on October 17th of this year.
That was not President Trump. That was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada legalizing marijuana. We were talking about that last hour. Also at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I guess we'll just call this the eclectic. We can't make. Could we call it the Newsmaker Total Information Power Hour? No, I guess that'd be ripping off Sean Hannity too much. I don't know what we're called, but we'll have some eclectic topics here at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So let me develop the Canada thing for a minute, but I'm still trying to, President Trump was in rare form last night. Some people may be bummed out that he caved. Some people may be bummed out that the illegals now can stay with their families. We're rewarding them. Always we'll take your calls on that, but let me give you this Trump quote first, and then we'll develop the marijuana reasons and why Justin Trudeau is wrong. But have no fear, Donald Trump is the real deal.
Democrats put illegal immigrants before they put American citizens. What the hell is going on?
Well, before we get to pro-life, let's get to traffic and weather together at KIDO Talk Radio. Now we'll go to pro-life. Pro-life, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yeah, when you were talking about legalizing marijuana in Canada, and Justin Trudeau said this is going to keep drugs away from children, marijuana away from children, and it's going to keep the illegal production of marijuana and the corruption of marijuana. What he's saying is that the pharmaceutical companies and the big growers are now going to be the cartel that supplies marijuana to Canadians, and nobody else can bust into that, or he's going to make sure that the police in Canada bust anybody for marijuana unless they get it.
Well, let's go back to it. Should marijuana be legalized in America?
No, it shouldn't, and it shouldn't be in Canada. And what Canada is doing is they're selling out to the pharmaceutical companies. You'll have to have a prescription. You'll have to have, and there'll be a tax on it. It'll just be government corruption all the way through.
Well, look, you have people regulating, cigarettes. Why can't they regulate the dope?
Well, because dope isn't good for you, and cigarettes aren't good for you. But what they're doing.
Well, look, you talk to people and they say, look, it will relax you. Life is good. There's no big deal about smoking dope. It's the best ever. Free love, free dope, free this, free that.
Yeah, well, maybe what we should do, the number one drug in the world is sugar, so maybe we should just say you have to have
look,
government sugar.
Whoa, before you start going after nutrition there, buddy.
Yeah.
Look, I'll take any drug test. Now, cholesterol test, you're infringing on my liberties.
Well, refined sugars are not good for our bodies. And
look, you're off topic. What about the marijuana?
It's not good for our bodies either. And Justin Trudeau is a one world order, big government, big everything crook. That's all I can say. And I don't know how Canada's so dumb to have somebody like that as their prime minister.
Well, maybe the Canadians are,
Well, they're just...
How smart are the Canadians? Ooh, better not say that.
Well, they're no smarter than we are. I mean...
Well, all right.
When you go to a public school and you learn just follow the government, and that's what everybody's doing.
You rip it on the public schools, but there are a lot of good things that go on in the public schools.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are some good things, but it teaches people to be groupthink and rely on the government.
Oh, so come on.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Kevin, it's sad for Canada. And
sad for Canada, hopefully not sad for America.
I know. Well, Trump is a little bit independent. He needs to get more independent, and I don't know. Hopefully he will, but God bless America.
God bless you, pro-life.
All right, we'll see you.
We'll be seeing you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. More coming up. Marijuana legalized in Canada. What about America? On my watch, on your watch, 580-5436. Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget, coming up, it is the Boise Music Festival. We're so excited to be a part of that again and again and again. When we're looking at just some of the big artists that are going to be there, it's going to be a great time. We hope to see you there at the Boise Music Festival. Now, where is it? That's at Expo, Idaho. And look, June 23rd, this Saturday, if you're looking for something to do, and people say, I don't really have a lot to do, I would love to check that out. We'll get to your calls in a minute. Jared Halpern joins us, Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio, and it's all about immigration. How will it twist and turn today, Jared? Good morning.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's got to be frustrating for House majority to sort of follow along here with the president's reactions to immigration, only because, I don't know if you saw the president's tweet this morning where he sort of complained that why is the House going through this if they can't get 60 votes in the Senate? That's not like a huge vote of confidence for these two bills that the House is going to vote on, we expect later today. Two different immigration bills. I suppose you could describe them as comprehensive. They do deal with these family separations, but they also deal with DACA, border wall funding, new limits on legal immigration, that diversity lottery visa. It deals with family migration, what the president calls chain migration. So it's going to be a pretty tenuous battle for House leadership anyway. Remember, earlier this week, President Trump came here to the Capitol to meet with every House Republican to give his support of these bills. Members of the House Republican Conference yesterday were summoned to the White House. They were viewed as sort of on the fence, but could be convinced to go along with it. The DHS Secretary has been here this week. The Attorney General has been here this week, all lobbying for this legislation, that this, in particular, the leadership compromise bill that's going to get a vote later today. It's still unclear if either of them get a say, get the 218 votes that they need. And to the president's point, both of these bills seem unlikely to advance in the Senate. But again, it's sort of a double message from the White House. You have the administration really giving a full throated effort here to get these across the finish line, but then you also have the president tweeting out this morning, but the Senate's not going to do anything with it, which I would think makes it harder for on-the-fence Republicans to support this.
I would say, so, have we made the situation worse? Is that even possible?
Well, I think it was complicated anyway with the executive order, because remember, we had heard from the administration for days that they couldn't do anything. Only Congress can fix this. There's not any action that the president can take on his own to resolve this crisis at the border, this issue of family separation. Urging Congress to do something, this language gets put into the Republican bill. Republicans are talking a lot about finding a legislative fix for this. We have a legislative fix for this, using that to whip votes, lobby votes, and then the president, changes course and turns out that there is something he can do on his own. So, I mean, I thought that, now that's not to say that there doesn't need to be a legislative solution. I think that there is agreement from both Republicans and Democrats that there should be. Now, there is still debate about what it should look like, what it should do. But again, the urgency of it, I think, was affected by the executive order.
Okay, Jared, final question. Any solution to this, or is this how you're going to spend your summer?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer. I mean, I think Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell described it pretty well earlier this week when he was asked about some of these House bills, the more comprehensive ones that are going to get a vote today, and he sort of dismissed them and said that what the Senate is focused on is this targeted issue of family separations, because doing more than that has proven impossible over the last several years. Immigration has been an issue that has not just plagued this administration, not just plagued the Bush administration, not just plagued the Obama administration. I mean, it goes back decades. And to suggest that, there's going to be a silver bullet right away is probably naive. Now, that being said, this is becoming, I think, for many lawmakers, a major issue for their constituencies. And so that's playing a big role in this as well. Sometimes that makes it harder. Oftentimes in an election year, that makes these solutions much more difficult.
To be continued. Jared, thank you.
Sure thing.
Jared Halpern joining us from Washington on KIDO Talk Radio. We'll go to the birthday boy. Happy birthday, Tea Party Bob. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Wow, I didn't expect that. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Getting to be an old man, you know what I mean?
Don't know anything about that, but go ahead.
I'm going to agree to disagree with you on the subject of legalization of cannabis, or as you call it, marijuana. Let's clear up a couple of things first. Marijuana is not a narcotic. Actually, only the law places marijuana in a category of a narcotic, but neither is cocaine or meth. Marijuana is a mild hallucinogen. Morphine and codeine are, including heroin, and all the synthetics, oxy, hydro, and fentanyl, they are all narcotics. I'm not sure why you like to compare marijuana to alcohol, as when you look at the two in perspective, where the CDC says that 88,000 alcohol-related deaths occur each year, while the number of deaths caused by marijuana are virtually zero. To die from an overdose of THC in the marijuana, you would have to smoke between 239 and 1,113 joints in one day. That's pretty smoky. When it comes to the substance abuse, we put somebody at risk of getting hurt, alcohol is considered to cause the most harm. Driving stoned is considered safer than driving drunk, believe it or not, but it is still dangerous.
Well, wait a minute. Depending on who.
Well, let me finish what I have.
No. You made a statement. Please back it up.
Depending on who, it doesn't matter.
You're making a statement that you're from who?
The CDC. Would you like to see it?
The Center for Disease Control.
That is correct.
I would ask them to talk to the law enforcement officers in Denver, Portland, and other parts of the country.
I understand what you're saying, okay? And each and every state has different problems. But driving stoned is still considered safer than driving when you're alcohol infested. In fact, the odds of having an accident are increased by 2,200% with alcohol, 83% with marijuana.
I'd have to see that study.
I will send that to you. I'm not saying we need to legalize marijuana. And
what are you saying then?
But what I am certainly for is to legalize CBD oil. so it's available to those who can benefit from it for its medicinal purposes, and not, it leaves thousands of Idahoans vulnerable to arrest because we don't legalize it. And what Brad Little wants is to keep the CBD oil out of Idaho so the pharmaceutical companies can come in and reap the harvest with their synthetic drugs cause some huge side effects.
The law is the law, though.
No.
You disagree
Kevin,
with the law.
The laws get changed, including Trump. He's even talking about legalizing
the laws
CBD oil.
Are not changed right now, though.
I'm saying they need to be changed.
Well,
that's what I just finished saying.
That's what we have the legislature, and the legislature
that's why we have people in the legislature who don't want who want the drug companies in here so they can get more money.
Will not legalize marijuana in this state.
They already passed it twice. What are you talking about?
And what happened?
The dumb governor vetoed it, that idiot. He's the one who's responsible for all these people.
And they didn't override
and doing harm for them because they can't get the damn CBD oil.
We're talking about legalizing marijuana recreationally.
I'm not talking about that, and that's how I started off my sentence. We are not saying we need to legalize marijuana recreationally.
Then you compared marijuana, driving impaired while stoned, to driving while drunk. You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, because you keep comparing them, and you keep saying alcohol is better. It's not better.
Alcohol is legal. Marijuana is not.
Alcohol is more dangerous than marijuana. Just because you have a knife and a gun, is it better to shoot yourself or stab yourself in the chest?
I hear stabbing is a lot more painful.
No kidding. When you take a look at what happens to people when they can't get a hold of the CBD oil, they are subject to arrest. But look at the research that's being done on CBD oil at literally world-renowned hospitals. They're showing amazing results for MS and Alzheimer's, Parkinson, epilepsy, and they've only begun to scratch the surface. Why do we want to make it so difficult to get CBD oil?
We're not talking about CBD oil.
I am talking about CBD oil.
No, I'm not talking about CBD oil.
You're talking about marijuana.
Yes.
And you're still talking through your hat. You don't understand what you're talking about.
I understand that it is illegal, it's against the law, and I support that.
Well, wonderful. But do a little bit of reading. Do a little bit of research. Just to understand what this is all about.
I do understand it, and that's my opinion, just like you have your opinion.
I understand. I've written about my opinion. I've written many, many times about it. I testified about it. But you don't just come out and say it's bad.
It's
not all bad. And if it's illegal, it needs to be changed.
Well,
if it helps people.
If it doesn't get changed, then it's still illegal.
Why do you think they are now allowing people the right to try drugs that have, in many cases, had very little testing?
Why do you think that every time they start with medical marijuana, it leads to recreational marijuana,
which doesn't always lead to it. You're full of horse manure.
Look at what's going on in California.
I know what goes on in California. Look at what goes on in Colorado. They don't have any restrictions.
And that's what will happen here. And that's why it should be illegal.
You don't know that.
I do know that.
No, you don't. You're guessing. If the laws are implemented properly, you don't have that problem.
Well, you tell that about the immigration laws.
You will just divert until you feel like you're right. You just don't want to sit down and listen to this.
I've listened to you and passionately make your case for almost 7 minutes.
Well, that's a good thing. You should probably listen for a half an hour. Next time we sit down and talk, you can expect it.
I can't wait. Thank you. You have a happy birthday.
You too, my friend. Thank you very much for my time on the air again.
I appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
David in Nampa, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity to share my opinion on the marijuana issue. I love Tea Party Bob. That guy's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
So I've been a paramedic for several years, and I just want to present a thought to people if they've never made this comparison before. There are numerous medical benefits to CBD oil and things like that. It costs tens of thousands of dollars a year to use the pharmaceutical grade stuff that helps with epilepsy and things like that. I have a friend whose young daughter's going through that right now. And the reality is, if I show up on a car accident, you've got a broken leg, you're going to want me to give you some morphine. Well, that's medicinal grade heroin. I mean, that's what narcotics, like what Tea Party Bob was just saying, the oxy, the hydro, all these pain medications that, you got a bad back, you got bad knees, you go in for a hip or a knee replacement surgery, you go in for any kind of surgery, you want that doc to give you painkillers when you're done. And I'm not talking about, being a drug seeker or any of that stuff, but just in the general course, getting dental work done, you're going to want some painkillers. That's medicinal grade heroin. So if there's benefit from that, and we've been using that for well over 100 years, why do people have such a hard time with the concept of medicinal grade marijuana or medicinal marijuana? I'm not an advocate for recreational use. I would never vote for recreational use. In fact, I agree with almost everything that Tea Party Bob just made comparison-wise between alcohol and marijuana. But from a medicinal standpoint, we're missing the boat. There's a lot of benefits to it.
Dave, duly noted. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right. Although when you legalize the medical, you bring in the recreational. It happens. Quickly to Dave and Meridian with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. Hey, I smoked pot from the age of about 14 to the age of about 25. And my biggest problem with legalization is that, like Colorado, most stoners, especially with the weed being so powerful, most of them are as harmless as flies. But they have to eat, they have to have shelter, they have to have food. And it seems to me most stoners or daily smokers are pretty unproductive people. And there'll be some exceptions. Somebody will call in and say, I can be stoned and operate a machine. But for the most part, there will be a burden financially, socially, for supporting people who just want to stay stoned all day and group together in their tent communities and get high. Somebody's going to have to pay their way through life. So even though they're harmless and not violent, they will cost somebody something somewhere along the way.
Well, that's what the advocates forget. The lack of enthusiasm, the throwing away of everything.
Well, yeah, and I understand Bob's passion for killing pain, but recreationally, it's going to be a destructive force in the long run, and we can see it wherever it's legalized. So it's really unfortunate that they're right across the border in Canada. I don't know how that'll affect the hockey, since I'm a hockey fan, but I hope it doesn't affect it negatively. But that's all I want to say.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Take care.
Yeah. Have a good day.
All right, coming up next, the biggest pro-pot advocate in the Treasure Valley. First, you're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. The hits just keep on coming. Joining us now, please introduce yourself.
Oh, my God, I can't believe I agreed with a little bit of what pro-life said. And Tea Party Bob, 10 years ago, he was calling your show saying, oh, that liberal Steve, is he high today? Is he smoking his hemp? He didn't even know the difference between cannabis and hemp. He's an idiot. But now he makes himself big because the politicians are talking about it, and it'll get him into the house downtown to talk to them. Come on. You know, I'm 10 years and paramedic, 6 months to 2 years of school. That makes you an expert, Mr. Paramedic. You know, that's why suicides are so high in America, Kevin, because the millenniums and the children can see the hypocrites, the everyday hypocrites in our politicians, in our theaters, in our movies, bang, bang, slaughter, kill them all, but God, follow the Ten Commandments. It's all so hypocritical, Miller. And as far as marijuana, Reynolds is getting out of the tobacco industry because they're having their butt sued off. 10 years ago, J.R. Reynolds already manufacturing and making through the government cannabis, cigarettes, and everything, getting ready for the big legalization all across the United States. They're ready. And the thousands of dollars that were paid into politicians here in Idaho from United Kingdom Pharmaceutical, out of country pharmaceutical.
Fair and balanced. Good morning, Dave. And Kevin Miller in the morning. Ray Amaya, outstanding job, but is getting us through another one. May God bless you and your family, everyone. Keep the faith, and remember, our great friend Glenn Beck's next, Dave Ramsey, Sean Hannity, and Lars Larson, all right here, KIDO Talk Radio.